Let me take you back to September 24th, 1775, near Montreal, on the St. Lawrence River. The night is cold, and Ethan Allen, the fiery leader of Vermont's Green Mountain Boys, is about to gamble everything: his freedom, his reputation, his life. He had already tasted fame. Months earlier, he stormed into Fort Ticonderoga at dawn, demanding surrender in the name of the Great Jehovah and the Continental Congress. That bold strike put desperately needed cannons in Patriot hands, and Allen's name on every colonial tongue. But one victory wasn't enough. Allen wanted Montreal. And so, with barely 100 men, farmers and militiamen, more courage than training, he slipped across the black waters of the St. Lawrence. His plan? To rouse Canadian sympathizers and strike the heart of British Canada before dawn. If it worked, Allen would be a hero who brought Montreal into the Revolution. But his grand vision and reality? Those were two different things. The plan was doomed before the first shot was fired. Coordination failed, reinforcements never came, and as the sun rose, Allen's small band of rebels found themselves face to face with hundreds of British troops, Canadian loyalists, even native warriors, outnumbered 5-1. Bravery was no match for those numbers. Within hours, the man who once made a British officer surrender in his night clothes was now the prisoner. The British wasted no time making an example of him. They clamped him in irons. They paraded him through Montreal. Citizens jeered and soldiers mocked. The man who had dared to seize a city with 100 men was dragged through the streets like a common outlaw. Ethan Allen's capture sent shockwaves through the colonies. At first, it was a bitter blow. Patriots had come to see Allen as this invincible man after his triumph at Ticonderoga. To hear that he was paraded in irons through Montreal, well, that hurt. For some, it was a grim reminder that reckless courage could end in chains, and that Britain's power remained immense. Now, most expected to hear stories of Allen being hanged, as that was the usual punishment for these crimes. But that word never came. For nearly 3 years, Allen was shuttled from Quebec to Halifax, across the Atlantic to England, and back again to New York. A prisoner of war, shackled, humiliated, but never broken. And strangely, Allen's captivity did not crush morale. It fueled it. Reports of his treatment, his defiance in prison, and his unyielding spirit gave Americans a symbol of endurance. He became a living martyr, proof that even if the body could be bound, the cause of liberty could not. His story also carried a practical lesson. Commanders like Washington and Montgomery saw how Allen's rash gamble endangered men and weakened campaigns. From then on, the Continental Army leaned more heavily on discipline, coordination, and patience, while still celebrating Allen's firebrand spirit. In the end, Allen's capture hardened American resolve. His chains reminded the colonies what was at stake, that the Revolution was no game of glory, but a deadly struggle where one man's fate could rally thousands. And when he returned, scarred but unbroken, Allen's very survival became proof that America, too, could endure the darkest hours of captivity and still rise again. And when Allen finally regained his freedom in 1778, he struck back the way he knew best, with words. His narrative of Colonel Ethan Allen's captivity became a sensation. In its pages, he cast himself as the fearless enemy of tyranny, a man unbowed in the face of British cruelty. Instead of a forgotten failure, he became a legend. If you'd like to hear more stories like this about the Revolution, please subscribe below and follow along, as there will be many more stories in the days, weeks, and months to come. Also, if you're interested in reading Ethan Allen's story, check the link below in the description. It'll take you right to the book that you can order.